As I have these conversations with people, the lines of boundaries and what masculinity is just disappears. Like, in terms of what the actual definition is, what it pertains to, where we see masculinity, what we see it as. And I think that's just so interesting. I think it's so weird how it's such a prevalent part and it's such a hot topic right now and probably throughout history. It's just so influential. And this conversation is a really cool one because me and the guest is Steph McDonald. I'll talk about her in a second. But we are able to really kind of break down and get into the ambiguity, the cloudiness of it all. And once we do finally get to a point that brings out some of what we agree upon as being masculine, we get into the importance of it in life and in purpose and in future. And the theme of it is maturity. And Steph, she is somebody I went to school with. We kind of caught the same vibe, caught the same energy, connected pretty early in our program and chatted constantly throughout it. So it's very, very cool to have two people in similar educational and career pathways, both who have changed careers to become counselors and took the same program, come together and really kind of discuss in a wholesome and mutual way what masculinity is. And Steph is an amazing person. She's been through a lot in her life, and I'm not going to spoil anything because I want it to come out in the podcast, but yeah, a beautiful person with beautiful ideas, and she's going to help a lot of people. And I think that is really, really amazing. And I hope that this conversation just convinces at least one person that there's not a specific timeline or blueprint for what masculinity is and what it should look like, because it's different for literally everybody. So as always, my name is Tyrone Powell. You can reach me at hellotyrone.ca. My email's there. My social links are there. Please follow along. Please leave a review. Please subscribe. Please let me know what you'd like to see. All of that jazz. I would love to hear from you. Or if you want to come on the podcast, shoot me a text. Talking to everybody. So, enjoy. Hello, Steph.
Hello. So glad to be here.
Thank you for coming on. How are you today?
Doing well. Yeah, things are good. As we were kind of warming up before you pressed record, I was saying that today I'm kind of living into what it feels like to be human. And that comes with an array of contradicting emotions, some joy and excitement for birth in my network. Someone is expecting and about to deliver. So very exciting. And also some really hard news today. So feeling both, and it's very real, very human.
That's fair. That's such a nice way to put it. It's funny the way you speak about that. I obviously follow you on Instagram, and that's the vibe I get from like your Instagram. Like it's just so peaceful and just like accepting of kind of your environment and you, right? And I love that so much. So perfect.
Thank you so much. Now, life in progress, work in progress.
Always, right? And that's, I think, so important. Oh, we're getting so deep already. I love it. The life in progress is the willingness to just kind of accept and learn and take in and grow. And very beautiful. So thank you for coming on. We'll get started. As always, first question, what is your definition of masculinity?
Such a good one. So I will say admittedly, I knew you were going to ask this question because I've watched past episodes. And so I did have a bit of a leg up to process this a lot. And thank you for the question, because it's not something that I have spent a lot of time sitting with and contemplating. It's been the topic of a number of dinner conversations. So that's been, really, really great to sit with. And I wouldn't say that I've changed my mind on the definition of masculinity, but if I can, I've got a book and I want to actually just pull from David White. If you've listened to or read anything by David White, absolutely incredible. Constellations is a really powerful book. And this book actually has essentially a bunch of different words and they answer them. So this is on maturity. And so when I think about masculinity, to me, I think it's actually coming into a sense of maturity. And that is not a male or a female thing, but instead is actually growing into oneself through a mature lens. So I'm just going to read to you like 3 sentences of how David defines maturity. So maturity is the ability to live fully and equally in multiple contexts, most especially the ability, despite our many griefs and losses, to courageously inhabit the past, present, and the future all at once. The wisdom that comes from maturity is recognized through a disciplined refusal to choose between or isolate between powerful dynamics. So I love thinking about masculinity in that context of a sense of maturity in life. Mm-hmm. And if you want me to define it, I also have a note here. So again, a leg up, but is from Scott Galloway. Love him or not, I think that his definition of, or sort of describing of masculinity, is to generate a surplus for the group, not just economically, but also in terms of energy, play, strength, and love. And I think thinking about masculinity as an external sort of outward view, to me, really resonates. And so, I'm wondering, just based on your experience and obviously passion for this area, how that lands with you.
I got to process all that. That's a lot of words. The maturity is an interesting one. My conversation with Matt is kind of aligned with that in terms of just like a responsibility for things you've taken on, whether it's people, whether it's just under your umbrella of protection, whether it's just like a passion project, whether it is the environment, people, like that's how I kind of link to that. And I really resonate with that as well. It's like, you think about, just if we want to talk specifically boys, it's like you've got this childhood, boyish, I don't even want to call it boys. Like, you've just got this child, it could be a girl or a boy, that is carefree, running around, not worried about consequences, like just testing things out and exploring and finding right and wrong. And while we should kind of keep some of that childlike wonder and exploration and frivolousness in ourselves as we grow, when we mature, we come into this understanding of consequences of our actions, right? And if there's only a few ways to learn, and that's either through experience or from a mentor or through reading and understanding through the experiences of others. So linking that maturity to masculinity, it makes a lot of sense to me. And then it doesn't specifically place it in men either. So I really like that as well. But then, and it's so funny, as I have more and more of these conversations, like the lines between man and woman just disappear every single time. And it's like, well, why are we even calling it masculinity? Why are these just like male traits? Like, what are we doing with that? Why are we holding on to that so much? Right. So that's where I put that, I guess. Yeah.
I almost think, to like kind of process that too, I almost think of the term masculinity as like having it's a bit misunderstood. And I think that to be, like how society might simply define to embody traits of masculinity is often associated with a gender, which is very inaccurate actually for what the term is. And that both male, female, irregardless of how you identify, is that you can absolutely embody traits of masculinity through what you say around a sense of wisdom and maturity and intention and the sort of external responsibility of contributing to society. I think I align to
that. Perfect. I like that. And then so what is kind of like your experience with I don't know, positive masculinity, we'll call it, and just kind of, I hate to use the word toxic masculinity because it's so vilified now, but just like harmful masculinity, we'll call it, right? Like those harmful traits that some hold so closely tied to masculinity. Do you have anything that kind of stands out in your life on both sides of the spectrum?
Absolutely. So when I think about like positive masculinity, I really do think it's, again, not to go to male or female, but actually is really experiencing and having relationships with individuals who are considerate of their contribution in this lifetime, and with individuals who are able to consider the communities that they're a part of, to be intentional about how they're showing up in the world. And to me, I think that embodies a positive sense of masculinity and feeling held and cared for and a part of a larger collective. To be specific, do you want me to be specific of
Sure,
something?
we got time. Yeah, we got as much, we can do whatever we want here.
I actually can't help but to think about being in community during COVID is what kind of comes up for me. And just thinking about like the transparency and vulnerability of not necessarily knowing the answers or knowing what's going to happen, but instead is like choosing to be vulnerable and to be present. And that to me kind of comes up of like thinking about masculinity. I saw a lot of really powerful examples in healthcare that come to mind. And then in like the exact opposite realm, when we think about like some examples of like toxic masculinity, I do think it is around like the perhaps like misconception of like what it means to be masculine. And I think that the like toxic side of what could be seen as your standard maybe masculinity would be around like the lack of ability to show emotion. And to me, I think that's really toxic in our culture. And that makes me very sad to witness and experience that, where people have to hold their emotions or to feel as though they're being raised in a society where their emotions aren't allowed. The like, you're okay. And literally the topic of your podcast of like, it's okay, man. But like how in society, when someone's really experiencing something and have someone tell you it's okay, you're okay, I think can actually be very toxic.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's funny you say that, because when I was like thinking of the name, even with my daughter and my son, my wife and I, we've agreed, like, we'll never tell them it's okay, right? Like, because they're feeling something, like, it's going to be okay, like, absolutely, right? But it's okay is like, you are just completely eliminating what they're feeling immediately, right? And so bringing that back here, it's like, well, it's okay. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. It's okay to understand that you can speak about what you're feeling, but not that just in general, you're okay, right? Like yeah. So there's a little bit of wording that I was playing with there. But anyways, the emotional isolation is kind of what came to mind, right? Like putting yourself in this little box where it's like, okay, there's all these people and all of these people are experiencing something different. And I'm in here and I'm isolated on this island with these emotions that I've been told that I potentially cannot feel or should not feel. That is, and then what do we do with that? Right. And it comes out as this, okay, if I'm not allowed to feel this and I shouldn't feel this, then how do I prevent myself from feeling it? Well, I control everything. I push my power on everything, right? Which ends up being very harmful and toxic for a lot of people. So,
yeah. And I think even too, like without putting that just in the bucket of masculinity, but even if I were to introduce like femininity, and I actually
Mm-hmm.
think that some of those things could be exactly the same. That
Mm-hmm.
expectation that we perhaps place on ourselves, that we project, has come from external society and seeing reward from behaving certain ways, or, being okay, and is instead like, a shutting down or a letting go of the emotional side of life and of the experiences. I think,
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Hmm. And it's interesting how what's coming to mind too is how you said linking it to gender, right? Like how masculinity is so common, and even femininity. And like what comes to mind is like the LGBTQ community, right? And we've got masculine presenting, right, or feminine presenting. And if we use that term, it's like, are we talking about their clothes? Are we talking about their hairstyle? Are we talking about the way they hold themselves? Are we talking about their personal traits such as this, right? And so kind of if we can separate that, like, or like through this conversation already, all I'm thinking is like, we just need to drop these titles for actual personal traits, right? For in the way people are acting, and more so go with like power, control, the responsibility, care, like, and leave those feminine, masculine definitions for potentially, I don't know, other things, right? Like, what do you think about that?
Oh, totally. I guess for me to clarify is like, is your thought around not using masculine and feminine, but what about the definition of male versus female and choosing to want to present as male? Is that any
I
different than using masculine?
I know, right? That's the thing. It's like, where do we draw those lines? What does it mean to be that? Personally,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we need a definite, like, you think in the future, the way I see it is like, okay, do we need those definitions? Like, do we need those labels? Because in the past, we were attracted to the opposite sex for the purpose of reproduction, to keep our species going, essentially, right? It's like that's how the evolution of it works. But now we're attracted to emotions and mental capacity and intelligence and other traits. And so in that sense, the male and the female side of thing doesn't actually pertain to a lot of people, which we see now, and like for years now, but it's very relevant now, I guess. But so I don't know where to draw those lines, and I can't answer because I'm not necessarily in that community. But that's kind of my view on it as a male, as a straight cis male. It's like, well, I I don't need that label. I don't need to be somebody. If somebody sees me as a man, great. If somebody doesn't, that's fine. Like, it's not my problem, right? So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting to sit with. And I I'm curious if there's actually research on this, like on the value of, even in joining this meeting, it asked me what my pronouns were. And so, yes, it's out of an intention to refer to someone as they wish,
mhm.
and that sensitivity to be able to acknowledge you as you wish to be acknowledged.
Mhm.
And then on the flip side of that is like, have we become too sensitive into this? Have we become hyper fixated on labels and boxes and over putting ourselves in these places versus just human? Yeah. And are these
Mhm.
labels necessary? And again, too, that isn't something that, I meet every day. And so I can't speak on behalf of the community, but only from my own personal experience around a curiosity and not necessarily an opinion.
Yeah.
The research side of things, obviously, and I was going to ask you around this of like introductions and, just kind of sharing where I come from. And obviously that in introducing myself, I have certain realms of bias that contribute
Mhm.
to my perspective, and
Mhm.
as do we all from our lived experiences. But to me, from a clinician perspective, is like leveraging that evidence based as much as possible, where possible. And so for me, it's like, I would be curious where the research would come.
Yeah, so where I was going with that was cultural. It's like
Yeah.
a man, yeah, a man. Let's say a man in Alberta, right? It's like, okay, we've got some truck driving, jean wearing, cowboy hat. Like, you're in Calgary, I'm sure you see lots of those. More than I do in Edmonton, right? And so like here, you look at that from behind and you're like, oh, okay, that's a man. I assume it's a man, right? But if they have long hair and that hat is gone, but they're still wearing everything else, it could be a man. But in another country, the long hair might signify woman, or even here, right? So it's like even the perception of that is completely internal and completely like it's only influenced by what you know from what you've been, of what you were raised in, or what you grew up in, or what you learned through your experience. And then as soon as you go somewhere else, it's different. So when we talk about the masculinity, it's like masculinity is really, your presentation of masculinity is only relevant where you are and with the people you surround yourself with, right? Which makes it so not real in a way, because as soon it's real, but it's just like the definition, a solid definition, one that should be like vilified in certain ways, or put down if it's not there, or like called feminine if it's not there, is just as soon as you go somewhere else, if it changes, then it's like, well, what are we doing here? Right?
I will be totally honest. I actually don't. I see like masculinity to me is not something that can be seen on the surface. Masculinity to me is behaviors and ways of existing and being in the world, and a perspective that you might have. To me, those are the traits of masculinity. Male presenting, a physical male presenting, is inarguable. Things such as facial hair may be male presenting. Even, size. If I were to have to describe someone, if I was, in a police scene or something like that, and there was the scene of the crime, and I had to describe, I would use, they presented as male. They looked like a male because of their size, their stature, their facial hair, things like that. Of course, that's male versus female, not necessarily like masculine or feminine traits. Like my brain doesn't see it that way, as like, you look masculine. I'm like, you look like a man, you look like a woman. It's not necessarily the masculine or feminine for me. I don't know if that's right.
And interesting, because that's kind of what we were talking about, right? It's like, should we disconnect that? And I think that's a very healthy way to do it too, right? Like changing, because you've got, I don't know, boys. In my own experience, it's like, how do I be masculine? Well, I grow up and I start, I get taller, I get bigger, I go to the gym, I have a house, I have a car, like that. Those are some of the first things that come to mind, and some of the first things that probably would be answers if you asked a lot of people at various stages in their life. Most of the people that I've spoken with have kind of a different view on things so far. So yeah, I think it's very, very healthy to separate that, essentially. So yeah, thank you for being a leader, a thought leader in that space.
Here, boys. Masculine. Not
that. Yeah, cool. It's so interesting, these conversations, because we like, obviously we spoke a week ago or so, and we were talking about things, and like we didn't even talking about this stuff. It just kind of comes up. Eh? Yeah. So yeah, so obviously you're a licensed therapist now. Congratulations. And so amazing. Now, what is kind of your experience so far in dealing with clients? Do you deal with male clients?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I guess how I've been, very transparently, this is new for me. So if you didn't introduce us, Tyrone, but we are classmates, we are colleagues now, and have had, such a privilege of getting to know you lightly through our schooling. And often, in the classes that we've had, I would go and search your name and look for how you would contribute, because I was, very fascinated by your perspective and really appreciate your wisdom, learning from you and learning together in this journey. And so kind of now, as I step into what is a very new career for me as a licensed clinical counselor, is around the intention of how I want to contribute. And so what I've been kind of positioning myself is just really around my my space that I want to work in is around matters of the heart, and that's in love, longing, grief would be kind of some of the key areas. And so that's both individual as well as couples therapy. And so, yeah, very much welcome working with men, and have been so lucky over the last 8 months of our practicum to be able to work with, a wide range of population and demographic. And that does include men. Yeah.
And what's your kind of experience with them? And how would you say that you treat differently or experience your side of things differently with them, or the messages that you end up telling them? Like, is there anything that kind of comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is like very client-led, or I am a very patient-focused therapist. And so really what that means is kind of coming into the fact that they may have a different perspective and experience than myself. And that doesn't necessarily come from male or female, but instead is like what their values are. And so I am intentional as much as I possibly can, respecting that, of course, I do have bias through my lived experience, but I'm really intentional to allow them to just come as they are and to be viewed as a human, not necessarily as a male or a female. However, depending on what their goals are and the reason why they're sort of seeking support, would, of course, perhaps embody some of these things that we're talking about around masculinity, identity, grief, longing, difficulties in relationships, difficulties and expectations with themselves as they are, and exploring, lots of different realms. And so kind of coming back to answer your question around like, what are the unique experiences with men versus women, or, other genders? I think as humans, oftentimes I'm not really surprised that men have the same challenges as women do, and that the male experience isn't necessarily so different from any other human. Once it comes down to it, and you shut off those layers of expectation, self-expectation, societal expectation, your culture, your biology, is like the lived experience, I think, can be, depending on, obviously, this is like bird's eye view, but can be just quite similar with challenges.
Yeah. I think that's, I think we do try and separate ourselves. I mean, obviously, right? It's like, men are, what is it? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Like it's just like built into us, where like we position ourselves so differently. But when it does come down to it, we are humans, and obviously we are different in various ways, and there are certain experiences and the way we feel and hormonal cycles and blah blah blah, all of that make us different. But when it comes down to it, like, we are these, and I don't know your views on it, but we are the animals with a frontal lobe, right? Like, when it comes down to it. So there are a lot of similarities, and maybe my theory is that if we started earlier in connecting us, then we would see way less like separation, and it wouldn't be so hard to integrate us later, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, actually, thinking of that, I have had a few clients who have like actually intentionally sought out to see a female therapist as a male individual. And so I think, you could break that down into so many realms of why that would exist, of wanting to talk to a female in terms of vulnerable conversations. And, I would be curious, like, as to explore that a little more. I think in broad strokes, obviously not talking about individual circumstances, but is often the like shame around the vulnerability between a male talking to another male, perhaps in their culture or other experiences of, what the comfort would be in talking to a female versus a male. So kind of interesting to think about that. And I do also respect, and I think there is a really important place for male conversation and male to male, and respecting that male is not necessarily like a specialization that I have of like male issues. Like, as we're filling out our forms and creating our profiles, it's like women's issues and male issues. And when I think of women's issues, it could be, realms of fertility, or thinking of some of these things that are biologically unique to to the female. But when we think about
Mhm.
male issues, is like, what is that? What's a
Yeah.
male issue versus a female issue?
Yeah. I think really that's just for somebody to look at and say, oh, I'm a man and I have issues, and she deals with them. Right. And
Yeah.
it's interesting. Like you said, males have come or go to specific female practitioners, and I've had also the opposite of that, right, where men have come to me and said both cultural, like one came and said I specifically looked up black male therapist in Edmonton, and you were one of the first ones that popped up, and so I'm here, right? And it's like, so some people, it's really just what you're used to, right? Like if you're used to opening up and you feel shame towards men, it's like, yeah, then maybe I'm going to go to a female, and that's fine. But yeah, the opposite definitely rings true as well, where it's, I've gone to female therapists and they don't get it, right? Or
Yes.
and maybe it was the wrong therapist or whatever. But yeah, I think the variation is so interesting too. It's like in both of our different stories are not opposing, but opposite stories right there. It's just so interesting how our experience like just shapes what we need. When we talk about that vulnerability, it's like, well, who can I open up to? Who can I trust? Who will be willing to let me break down and take off this fake masculinity that I've put forward and allow me to just be without, not even without giving me judgment, but without me feeling that shame, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like we've learned this is just that we are not the therapist for everyone, and that for each individual, not every therapist is right for them. And I really encourage that with my clients too, is to know that I'm not going to be the expert in absolutely everything, and to make sure that there's alignment in terms of skill set, but also that like therapeutic fit, that like sometimes unexplainable connection of feeling heard by someone, and that like comfort to be able to, yeah, to just openly share and to feel like you are heard and understood is so important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, so I want to shift gears, if you don't mind,
Okay,
and ask
absolutely.
kind of about your experiences, just with being a cancer survivor. How has that kind of changed your perspective on, I don't know, life? And you said you went through a career change as well, right? I believe so. Yeah, okay. I've been talking to a lot of people. Sorry. I'm like, yeah, she absolutely said that. So, yeah. So things like that, like what changed your perspective? Was it related to that? Do you notice a big change in yourself? Can you just speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my perspective changing, you know what? I honestly don't think I've ever had like a perspective change, but instead is like an evolution of my lived experience contributing to how I see the world and how I choose to operate. And, you know, a lot of conscious intention and self-acceptance, I would say, has kind of been my biggest force to kind of lead me to where I am now and what I choose to do and how I choose to spend my time, which is not perfect. Admittedly, I still watch Netflix and probably spend too much time on Instagram, like many other people. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would say that yes, absolutely, my very early experience with cancer, and this is something that I'm growing into becoming open about. And admittedly, for many years, I really chose to keep it quite close to my chest and not to be really shared widely. However, and talking about what we opened with is like the human experience. And I think that it takes a lot of courage to be open about your human experience, and that includes the struggles. And so for me, it's something that has been a really big part of my life, is my fragility and my experience with illness. And so that came in my early 20s of having a pretty drastic shift in my ability to function and facing a lot of really difficult physical struggles with an undiagnosed illness, which did come out to be cancer. And so through that journey of feeling out of control and not knowing what was going on with me physically, and experiencing years of chronic illness and unsolved illness is really challenging. And at every age it's really challenging, but I think specifically in that time of my life was really unique and really hard to connect with other people. I felt very isolated, very like I was living a double life, because on the outside there were things that made me look really normal, and I was in university and still trying to be a high overachiever that I really do feel like I am authentically in my body. I'm like such a workhorse, and I'm a total tryhard. And then also inside is like this thing that's going on that is really hard to explain, and getting comfortable with needing to have boundaries. And unfortunately, it wasn't even like a choice of boundaries, but was like the inability to do things physically because of my illness. And then I think the other element of it is like going through that and actually having a label like cancer be put onto what I was experiencing, and then immediately joining this club that I never wanted to be a part of, which is to be a cancer individual, a survivor, however you choose to label it for yourself, but being a part of this club that, I didn't want to be a part of at that age, let alone ever. And now I am, and going through many waves of, kind of considering that as part of my identity. Is it my identity? Is it not?
Yeah.
Some of those elements have really contributed to how I see the world and how I operate. And then, the other element is career change. And so I have always been someone who wishes that I had 10 lives that could all be counted and remembered. And you know what, honestly, I think I probably will have many lives. That's something that I like to comfort myself with, but I've settled on having chapters. And so for me in this lifetime, I really see my life as having chapters, and sometimes they're hard to close certain chapters and to choose to go to other ones. But I only have as many hours in the day as all of us. And so I think for me is like leaning into these different chapters. And one of them is that I really want to be a helping professional. I have been a long time aspiring psychologist and still am, as I work towards my licensing as a registered psychologist in Alberta. But now as a clinical counselor and kind of finishing up my master's is just feeling so much like deep soul alignment into doing this type of work and having these types of conversations and sitting with people and being in a privileged position to be able to hear and to sit with them and be with them as they navigate and explore their experiences and build skills to be able to navigate life.
Right.
That was a roundabout answer. Lots of talking.
I was going to say, thank you for sharing. I'm trying to like find the just what about. I mean, it's so much, right? Like it's obviously there's ones that don't survive, and that's tragic. And even the experience you had is, I'm sure, tragic. Like to have to double life, like you said. Not only are you dealing with not normal, but like a healthy individual's ego battle where you're masking and trying to fit in and blah, blah, blah. You're doing almost a triple life at that point, right? Like there's so much going on. And this is all, I mean, not to tell you what you were feeling at the time, but, yeah, that sounds like so much. And then
can I say one more thing? Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead, please do.
Like, you got me talking, and it's very rare that I, talk about this. But one other thing I want to say is around like when we talk about life and we can get, caught in these stages, and this actually comes back to like David White's constellation's definition of maturity, but is like the ability to live within like past, present, and future. And I think illness can be something that can be really life altering in terms of perspective too, because the past is something that, there may be regret or longing to change or to do something or to have seen something or noticed something that, could have been done earlier, or, any of those things of control of changing the past or being at peace with the past or longing for more of the past.
Yeah.
And then the current and the reality of that. But actually the future is like a whole other element that is really complex because we're not promised the future. And I think with illness and, the severity of some people's experience with cancer is like the future is also something to be like, just handled so delicately and to be explored. And we're so lucky if we get to be able to plan for that and to build for that. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, of course. I'm a present moment. I'm a present moment plan and hope for the future, and learn from the past type person, and kind of make your peace with it. It's happened, but it's all about the now, right? To me, as a Gestalt therapist, I'll call myself now, present moment awareness. But I think there's so much learning and teaching that can come from an experience like yours, because it's not something people. I mean, we think about like Yalom and the existential, like death anxiety, right? Like that's something people like ignore and deny up until the day they actually die. So to have to come to terms with that at such a young age, like we can circle back to maturity at this point too, right? Like that's you in order to function and grow and continue to progress with your inner overachiever, you have to mature in so many ways, I bet. So yeah.
And I think that like internal experience and internal processing and sense of like desire to explore that for myself, but then also too, like when we think about that maturity side of things, is like, how am I contributing to this world, and what is my impact here, and what am I leaving in terms of my contribution to this life and the people around me. And I can feel it really overwhelming. At least I found it very overwhelming to try and build a legacy when first 3-4 years of your life are kind of unconscious and can't really do much at that age. So then, when you're in your 20s, is like, 15-16 years of life is like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a very hard point. A lot of my clients, most of my male clients, all within that age range, like 20 to 30, they all have the same kind of, what the hell am I doing? But like epiphany, like, and I've mentioned this before, but it's like you grow up and you're being taught and you're trying to fit in, and you've got your teachers, your friends, your educators, your parents, like all of these people kind of like shaping and molding, and you're just, all you want is love. All you want is to succeed in their eyes. And then you hit like 20 something and you're like, holy shit, this isn't me at all. Like, what the fuck? Right. And so tie that in with, hey, I want to exist beyond my potential death. It's like, okay, well, now I need to really go, right? Like now I need to really make my mark. So that's, I don't know. I thought like, it's funny whenever I say this in session, like, wow, that's a lot, right? Like I like preface it with my clients. I'm like, this is really cliche, but that's a lot. Like with all due respect, like that is a lot, right? So I commend you for getting through it in a very seemingly successful way, at least. Yeah.
Thank you. I actually, this isn't someone in my network, but a friend of a friend, they're having a milestone birthday and had decided to have like a living celebration of life, which is incredible. And so they invited, a number of close friends and had asked them to kind of essentially like give a speech about them if they felt comfortable and if they felt open, and or like bring something that embodies this individual that was kind of planning the celebration. And I just thought that was so powerful to kind of sit with and live into, like essentially what your legacy is and the impact that you've had, and like be around for that is so cool. So yeah, that just kind of made me think about that. Is like,
Yeah.
it is a lot, and wow, like it is so much to be alive. And sometimes it feels good to like hear that, like, wow, you do have a lot. I'm like, I know, because I'm living double, triple time here. Like my husband will joke about that all the time. Is like, in my, whatever number of years I've been living, is like, I'm 90 because I've done so much in this life. It's like, yep, multiply each day by what I'm doing and being, and yeah, which is sometimes exhausting, but
Yeah.
it is me.
There you go. Yeah. And with the celebration of life thing,
Mhm.
I actually really like that, because people don't get those like flowers and those flowers and speeches until they pass away, right? And then everybody leaves them on the graves and cries and blah blah blah, and it's a sad thing. And you could still do that after, but like, let's talk about me for a day. I've lived a while, right? um, but yeah, I don't know. I think that's about it. What is there anything else you wanted to bring up, or any comments or questions for me? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'll ask you, if you're open to me asking you a question back, is just around like this stage for you coming into being a therapist, and what are some of your goals working in this space of masculinity, or specifically kind of male population?
Um, well, my kind of main goal is to establish myself as a kind of a strong voice on this side of things, like because there's just so much in the manosphere, as they call it right now, where there's just these, like, I don't want to say right wing, because some of them aren't, but just like they're pushing these external ideals of masculinity, where it's present as a certain way or be a certain way and take what you can. And I feel that there's just not enough that I know of, at least, or maybe they're not big enough yet, or whatever. Because there are some, I've read some books and blah blah blah, but so I would like to be just at least a voice for, even if it's a few people that hear this, and makes them think and wonder, because I know it's not going to be like an immediate drastic change, but like, it's at least kind of the starting place. And I know that if this space isn't filled by somebody like me, then it is going to get filled by the other side, or it will just not exist, right? And so it kind of has to start somewhere. So in this space, that's what I like, and I think that relates directly to kind of my therapy positioning. I am, yeah, I'm nervous to really get into it. It's funny, every time I've always kind of chased that nervous feeling, like I really live kind of there, and I thrive there. And I usually push through, and it's fine. And I treat it as excitement, essentially. So, but I'm nervous to try and fill a schedule, and really dive into it, and fill the identity that I've created, and really embody it. But so yeah, that's kind of my goals, just to fill this space on the masculine, in the male side, um, and bring a sense of kind of self-understanding and acceptance of unique experience to therapy, that I feel that was really, even in our schooling, was really missed. I think it was very, I find, kind of treatment focused and very westernized, I'll say. And I really like the idea of more like genuine presence and like emotion on both sides of it, and modeling a real relationship. Like, we can come and we can have disagreements, and how we exist together in a healthy state while having that disagreement is a much healthier way than me pretending like we don't disagree, you know? So that's kind of where I'm at. And psychedelic assisted therapy I'm getting into as well, of course. So that's very, very exciting too. But yeah.
Very powerful.
Is that a good answer?
No, totally. Yeah, so much to say back to you and all of that. But I guess maybe yeah, in summary, to say is just like, thanks for being you. And I do think that there is so much opportunity and space for male oriented therapy and intentional support of men in our society. And yeah, thanks for being so intentional to build the skills that you have been and to advocate for it and to essentially just like carve out space to be and to exist and to be a part of community. So yeah, that's great. I admire
Well,
you in
thanks.
that.
Thank you. Thank you. I did like how you said, for your practice, the matters of the heart. That was very, that like struck me out. I was like, that's beautiful. That's really nice. So.
And it's, I think something that's been really comforting, and of course we have so much supervision, but I have sought a lot of mentorship in this area, and to also just like, yes, of course, I feel like I need to position myself and to, of course, we've been doing all these trainings and building skills to be able to support clients in certain realms. And so, individuals and couples therapy is like, there's so much to that, but trusting that like, while I may put it out there of being supporting with all of these, matters of the heart, of love, of longing, transitions, whether they're happening to us or we're seeking them out, but is actually that our sort of client population will unfold based on recommendations and referrals, and that we will kind of over time actually maybe be taken down spaces and places that we didn't expect because of it kind of our clients being shaped for us, seeking us out in ways that we might not be able to present, but instead is just based on recommendation or referral or some sort of connection that, we don't really understand or know, but it's just a fit for someone else.
Perfect. Okay. Well, for the final, not question, but statement, I guess, like I guess it's both. It is a question. A message to your potential clients, to maybe listeners who are scared of the future, because I feel like you are not afraid of the future. But yeah, anything you'd like to say to cap it off?
Holy moly. I guess, closing out, talking about being afraid of the future. To me, I would just say that if there's space for you in this life to have curiosity to explore yourself, I think that your relationship with yourself is one of the most important relationships that you'll have in this lifetime. And I do think there's a lot of pressure, and I'm not talking specifically about masculinity, but I do think it applies to, have these friendships and to be doing all of these things. And I think one of the things that I would introduce is that relationship that you have with yourself, and to deepen that as much as you possibly can in this lifetime, I think will create a lot of peace and fulfillment. And so that doesn't necessarily need to be done through therapy, but really is like exploring and committing to and giving to your relationship with yourself. I think it's very important.
There you go. Well, thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you again for being on the podcast. Yeah, that's it.
So glad to be here. Thank you for your time too.
Thanks, Steph.
Take good care. Bye for now.